Awesome. Hello, everyone. A very good evening. We assure you a fun ride today with today's session with Ruchira. Lean in Delhi partners with Sipping Thoughts and Penguin to bring you a session on the secret code to uncommon leadership with Ruchira Chaudhary, author, coach to CXOs, and management consultant. I wanted to personally wish Ruchira on the launch of her book, Coaching the Secret Code to Uncommon Leadership. A big congratulations, Ruchira, on this fantastic achievement.
Thank you.
An alum of the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, Ruchira straddles the corporate and academic worlds. She's a leading executive coach, adjunct faculty at several top-tier business schools, and the MD of True North Consulting, a boutique strategy consulting firm. Ruchira has held leadership roles in organizations such as Medtronic and AIG in Singapore, Qatar Telecom in Qatar, and TCS in India. Her consulting repertoire spans multinationals, government agencies, and leading local business organizations across industry sectors. Some notable clients include Estee Lauder, companies in New York City, Michelin Tires in the Middle East, Telstra International, DB, Credit Suisse, among several others. I'm Urvi Juneja, VP at Genpact and chapter leader at Lean in India. Just briefly about our partners, let me start with Sipping Thoughts. Sipping Thoughts is a multi-platform media company co-founded by Sukirti Gupta here with us today and Meeta Gudgutia. It was set up keeping in mind the tagline, Real Women, Real Thoughts, a no judgment platform where they want to create a network of women for women. About Penguin, in India, Penguin Random House has grown to become one of the most recognized names in the publishing world. Since 2018, they've also been publishing in Hindi and other languages such as Marathi, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu, etc. Along with books for adults and children, they also have a rich collection of audiobooks and ebooks, and many of their stories have been adapted into films and web series. And now about Lean In. Lean In is a community founded by Facebook COO Cheryl Sandberg that empowers women towards their ambitions. Lean In aims to contribute towards encouraging more women in leadership positions through peer circles, campaigns, collaborations, and events. Our aim is to increase representation of women in leadership positions by enabling further women in workforce. With this, I hand over to Sukirti, co-founder Sipping Thoughts. Over to
Thank
you.
you, Urvi. And Ruchira, first of all, a big congratulations. I mean, wow, it must feel amazing to have actually gotten the book out.
It does. It does. I sometimes find it hard to believe it's actually out. So thank you. And thank you for
So,
the platform.
oh, absolutely. The book already is receiving a lot of praise. Can you tell us? I know it's so exciting, but some of the comments, the feedback to date that you've received on the book before we get into the heart of the discussion.
So early days, very early days. I mean, I know you both are on my LinkedIn, so you've seen all the action and got some good endorsements, but it's literally been in the market now for the last week now, and people have just started receiving their Amazon copies. And I have friends and clients who keep pinging me with photographs. So it's all very nice. But just this morning, I thought perhaps the nicest WhatsApp message I could have ever got. It's a
Please
gentleman
do
who
share with us.
he actually is on. I won't say his name. I just saw him pop up. So I want to let him know that I haven't responded because I felt that uh, my one line text wouldn't have done justice to what he's written to me. He's been a mentor and someone I've looked up to for a very long time. So I feel truly privileged that he sent me this message, and I'm going to read it out to you. It's a bit long, so bear with me. So he says, I'm a very bad and poor reader of books, so I may take longer to go through Coaching the Secret Code to Uncommon Leadership. But even the little I've read so far, the foreword, the preface, the introduction, have had me gripped. It's the feeling I would have had reading fiction in my younger days. Hard to put the book down and want to read till the last minute of the available time. I can see why this is going to be an extremely interesting and rich read. A lot to already ponder about, a lot already that I can relate to from my own moments of career disappointments and moments of elation too. A lot of core beliefs and principles that are being provided a structure and framework, a series of actions and beliefs that are getting meaning around. I will try and change the unfriendly reader in me. largely because I'm feeling a sense of excitement and learning from every section. I haven't even begun. Thanks for taking the time to write this book. I'm sure you will help many managers and leaders rediscover why they are the way they are and equally help others be the way they ought to be.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's been the CEO of some fairly blue chip organizations. He's a leader, a truly uncommon leader in his own right. For him to send this to me, I have to say I'm truly flattered.
Fantastic. No, I mean, I've been seeing all of the buzz on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So kudos, kudos. Back to you, Urvi.
So, being from Leland, I've had the honor to meet Cheryl Richards in California a couple of years back when I was at
Yeah.
the regional meet. And all I can say is it was a very humbling experience, and there's so much to learn from that lady. It is a matter of pride, I believe, to receive an endorsement from Cheryl on your book. I wanted to understand what your thoughts are on that and what are some of your learnings been on that endorsement.
Oh, I think she blew me away. She does every time I write to her. You know, I'll tell you about the endorsement, but when the book cover was on, I'll put this up for in a minute. So when the book cover came about, we spent a lot of time, and Penguin, I think, has done a fantastic job in the end. We went through many iterations, this sort of, this knot that's getting entangled, and then you're moving up. It's about shining brighter, etc. So when I sent her the book cover, and it has her name right on top for mine, I got a one-line response from her. She said, "I'm honored." And you should have, this is the feeling. And she said, "Oh, but my name shouldn't be above yours. You're the author."
Mm.
It's the kind of, it's what makes truly an uncommon leader.
Yeah.
Uh, just sort of connecting with her has been a huge learning experience for me. I didn't know her. We are connected in some ways. As an academic at the University of Chicago, I've had opportunities to interact with her, but it's never been one-on-one. The fact that she took the time out to not only respond to me, but to actually go through the entire manuscript and then send me that blurb, it was, I guess, an experience that I will remember for a very long time. And she continues to inspire me every day.
Yeah, yeah, she continues to inspire each one of us in her own amazing way, truly an uncommon leader. Over to you, Sukirti.
So before we get into the secret code for uncommon leadership, Richard, first I want to understand we have so many definitions of what is a leader, what's a good leader. So what actually in your framework or in your mind makes an uncommon leader? And what is that secret sauce to the uncommon leader? If there is such a thing.
um, let's talk about leadership for a minute. And I must be honest, to qualify the statement, my book is not about leadership. There are fantastic books in the market that tell you about leadership. This is a book about uncommon leadership, or it's a book that describes what it takes to become an uncommon leader. I've tried to distill this, right? So let's just talk about leadership for a minute. The narrative around what good leadership has changed dramatically. Almost a decade ago, there was this whole conversation around it's not just enough to look at to achieve your numbers or your revenues. It's also about everything else that you do along with that as a leader. It's about the processes, it's about how you build the brand of the organization, but about everything else, it's also how you take your people along in the journey. So as you go about building these empires and achieving billions in revenues, are you building your people? Are you the leaders of today thinking about the leaders of tomorrow? And that, unfortunately, has been a huge gap in the way we've been thinking. And there's a growing acknowledgement that needs to change. And the best in the business get it right. They do that by focusing on these reservoirs of human capital, their own people, right? And as they elevate themselves, they also elevate others along with them. As they shine brighter, they also shine the light on people that are with them. That's what uncommon leadership is. And I've sort of talked more about the aspect of coaching, which to me is the crucial difference between an average leader, or I should perhaps not use the word average, a good leader and an extraordinary one, or someone who wants to transition from being a manager to a leader. That's what coaching is. Coaching is about enabling, it's about helping people find their path, it's about giving them the platform to discover themselves. And these leaders, when you look back and you look at a Sheryl Sandberg, you look at a Satya Nadella, you look at some of the cricket captains, because there's so much cricket buzz around, right? And especially how we've how well we've done in Australia against Australia. What is it that sets these leaders apart, these uncommon leaders? It's their ability to motivate, drive performance, because they inspire people. When we talked about Cheryl, we're all inspired we are inspired truly. And what they do right is their ability to connect with people and help them go higher. That's what uncommon leadership is about. And the book then tries to talk about why coaching and how. So it's not just about saying why, but I've tried to make it more practical. So how do you go from the why to the how? How do you actually get towards this uncommon leadership? So I think a lot of us, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into that. That why do you feel that the leader himself needs to be a coach, or the leader to become extraordinary needs to be coached? Or is it a bit of both?
Oh, both, absolutely both. So I think that therein is where the problem lies, right? What's happened is that our approach to leadership has been, I wouldn't say wrong, but it's been slightly misplaced. We've always said, oh, this person is a fantastic performer. Oh, he's the best and the brightest. He has to be the captain of the ship. The guy who's scoring the most runs has to become the next captain because, oh, he's fantastic. But the challenge is the best and the brightest performer today is not necessarily your best and the brightest captain, is not necessarily the best and the brightest leader of that ship. Because the qualities or the traits that you need to lead sometimes are in conflict with those of a competitive super performer. And we have never nurtured and coached these people to become leaders. So as a result, they take on the mantle without being fully prepared. And they in turn don't coach and nurture others. So we have a huge problem. We're no longer building leaders because we don't know what it is to build leaders. We've never been coached ourselves, so we don't coach others in turn. And that becomes a huge gap. And that's what we're trying to look into, delve deeper, address through the book in some ways, but also provide some practical tips and tools and frameworks without overwhelming the reader, without making it prescriptive or directive. It has to be a breezy read. So there's a lot of that in the book as well.
Thank you for clarifying that. Over to you, Urvi.
Thanks, Sukirti. We all understand, Ruchira, that coaching and mentoring helps us all take our career forward. And most of us must have gone through it without really understanding the difference between the two. So I want to get some, want to see if I can get some insight into, is coaching different from mentoring? I understand the two are different things, but I wanted to get your view on it. And if you could highlight some examples from your experience when an individual should go for a coach versus going for a mentor.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I have talked about it a little bit as well. So coaching and mentoring are often used interchangeably, but they're two rather different terms, right? So when you think mentor, think about somebody older, typically more influential in the organization, someone who can actually help shape your career journey. This individual is typically dispensing wisdom, nuggets of wisdom, guidance, telling you how things should be done, telling you how I've done it in the past, and this is how you could benefit. Now, a coach, unlike guiding your career journey, is typically guiding your current practice. So think about journey versus practice. This is here and now, and that's long term. And a coach is typically, ideally, should be in your direct line, your manager or your boss's boss, somebody who's helping you become a better version of yourself. But the way that individual does that is not by telling you what to do. The key difference is they ask, they don't tell. They give you the space and the time to discover the path themselves, yourself, right? And that's the key difference here between a coach and a mentor. And honestly, these are not mutually exclusive. You should have both. And especially when you're starting out in your career, you probably need a lot more mentoring. You need a lot more help in terms of this is how you should do it. But you do also need coaching. And frankly, if you're not getting it, then seek it, ask for feedback. And then you sort of go through your, your middle career, medium term. Then start focusing on both with renewed zeal and make sure you have more than one mentor. Doesn't have to be within your organization, could be outside, could be a friend, could be an ex-boss. Remember, their advice is more generalized. It's more generic, it's generalized, it's about everything. It's often personal as well in nature. But a coach is committed to helping you with your current performance and enhancing your capability. And then as you're starting to look at the executive level, then please ensure that you almost have like a board of advisors, people who are helping you in different parts of life, but the coaching stays. And one of the things I realized as I was writing the book, and I spoke to a lot of senior leaders, a lot of heads of regions, etc. And it was quite interesting to hear that so many of them long to get that coaching, but when you get to a certain stage, you get very little of it, or sometimes almost none, because it's like this pyramid, right? And when they keep saying it's lonely at the top, it really rings true. Because I've had so many people say, we're always running from one place to another, we are traveling the world, and I'm the head of Asia Pacific for an investment bank. My boss doesn't think I need coaching because I'm expected to know it all, but honestly I don't. And it's quite an eye-opener when you hear this. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, definitely. Now, I just want to take that a step further. Do you think people at that level also hesitate to ask for a coach? Or is it because they're really hazy whether they need something or not? Or, is it a combination of that? Or
Oh, yeah. So you see a lot of people at that level that I've just described often get what you call an executive coach, right? You will get somebody or they can ask for it. I believe a lot of progressive organizations will do that. And by the way, executive coaches, some of them can be fantastic. Oh, I'm one myself. So to say that you don't need executive coaching would be, that's my bread and butter. But that's what I was going. The thing is, think about executive coaches or coaches that you get in your journey as people who come to iron out a wrinkle of sorts, right? They come here in short bursts. They help you for a certain part of your journey. They don't partner with you, right? But your boss, your manager, the individual that you work with should really be the coach, your day-to-day coach, the individual who helps you make sure that your clothes are ironed and starched and cleaned, right? So ironing out a stubborn wrinkle versus making sure that you're always well turned out, there's a slight difference. And so every leader needs to be a coach who's also helping others shine, elevating them, giving them opportunities, giving them constant feedback. When you bump into them in the corridor, they say, "Hey, fantastic job. I think you did this really well. And next time, perhaps you could do this slightly differently." But that's what you need. That's the kind of guidance or the feedback that you need from the coach, which is not prescriptive in nature, but it helps you think about how you could perhaps do things differently.
Got it. Yeah, very insightful. Thanks. So, Kirti.
So, Ruchira, I think one point that stuck to me while you were speaking is that you said every leader needs to be a coach.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, as leaders, we're not taught how to be coaches. So first of all, I'd like to come back to your book and want to understand what, according to you, is the key takeaway from this book. And the one
Kirti, you went to the University of Chicago.
I gave you 5 questions.
No, you went to the University of Chicago, the Booth School of Business. Did they teach you how to be a coach? I went to the same business school. Did they teach you anything about?
They taught me very good finance. They taught me how to
so
manage numbers.
This is not a commentary on our business school, which, by the way, we all love very much. But it's not about these business schools. It's about the way when we go to school, when we go to college, we're taught to be number one. We're taught to be shine brighter than everybody. We're taught to be competitive because you have to come first. Second, okay, third's fine. But it's always about us. When do we learn to take others along in the journey? When are we taught that lifting others is also about lifting yourself? And what happens is we go through business schools, we learn about negotiations and finance and marketing and whatever strategy. But when we get out in the real world, nobody really prepares us for some of the hardest challenges, which really are the softer aspects, as we thought then. It's your people, right? And that ability or that emotional quotient often is completely missing because we've never taught how to coach people or to build people. So, interestingly, a lot of people, and this is not just me, in surveys, they'll say, "Oh, I'm a fantastic coach. I spend a lot of time." But when they think they're coaching, they're telling people what to do. Okay, oh, this is how I did it. And this is how you need to do it. Now, the trouble is, coaching is not about making mini-me's. Frankly, the world has changed. Maybe that person could be a better individual than you, or could be a lot more capable, or could have a lot more, could have a lot more to offer by way of ideas, innovation. So that mindset where a leader has all the answers, that like we were taught to do, like we were always tempted to do that, oh, I need to find a solution quickly. That needs to change. We need to give people the time and space to carve out their own solutions. It's not easy. It's not easy because we're not taught. It doesn't come naturally to us. We don't truly know what it is. And frankly, it's very uncomfortable because it's kind of amorphous and hazy for a lot of people. Also, what is coaching? Where you ask a series of questions. So how do you know it's working? And it's very uncomfortable because you want to quickly give someone an answer. And here you're trying to get them to get to that stage, right? It takes a lot of courage as well, because you have to surrender that control and just sort of say, right, have you thought of this? Or perhaps you could think of doing this. And it's not an easy job. It's not an easy task. So for a variety of reasons, and some of them that you articulated so well yourself and experienced in some ways, coaching becomes a challenge for a lot of managers. Despite knowing that they should coach, they unfortunately fall short.
How can one? I know, of course, your book is actually compelling us to do that, to look deep and say, okay, how do I become a better coach? Is that the key takeaway from your book, or what is that one message that you would like to give the readers?
When I started writing the book, I would say it was perhaps that, but this book was, I think, ready to go in March of last year. And then, of course, the world changed, right? Everything was like, like we're slowly sort of stumbling on to some form of normalcy, and the book is out, almost 6 months or 8 months after waiting for it to be out. I think my message is slightly different. I always said coaching was important, but now what I'm saying is coaching has never been more important than it is today. Our already turbulent times demand that a leader navigates these choppy waters with a very steady hand at the helm. Think about trust and resilience as being those rudders. Ensure that people trust you so that you can trust them to do the job. Harness the collective intelligence of your people. Ask, don't tell them what to do. Constantly understand that their life situation could be different from yours, that we're not all in the same boat. Some of us have speedboats, some of us have those dingies or whatever. We're all in the same storm, right? The pandemic is a storm for all of us, but our life situations are very different. Spotty internet connections, barking dogs, young kids. So you can't put everybody on, it's not a level playing field, right? So think about empathy, think about resilience, think about trust. And if you focus on those three things, I think you would be a fantastic leader coach. It doesn't matter if you have large teams reporting to you, or whether you're an individual contributor, or whether you're an entrepreneur or a freelancer. I think it's a life skill. I think this is about bringing out the best in other people. This is not a book just for people who lead teams. I think there are nuggets in there that will benefit everybody.
Fantastic. Good to hear that, because that was coming in my mind, because I think a lot of times we get confused that whether we should be coached or whether we are to be the coach.
And ideally both, right? Seek it when you have the opportunity. Seek it from your manager, your leader. Get it from outside if you can afford it or someone's paying for it. Absolutely go for it. But if you have people that work with you, work in your teams, please be that coach. Please be that leader that elevates and empowers. Because in doing so, you will realize you will elevate yourself.
Thank you. Over to you, Urvi.
So, Ruchira, you just mentioned that COVID-19 pandemic is the storm that's hit all of us. It's probably the worst crisis in the history of mankind, and it's called for unprecedented times. Obviously, unprecedented resilience and empathy that we have to show towards others. It's also brought the world economy to a grinding halt and led to serious issues. Both psychological, social, everything. You've talked about the importance of coaching during a crisis. How do you think a leader should use coaching during a crisis?
So two aspects to it. I've already touched upon the trust factor and the empathy factor, like we're not in the same storm. I really love telling everybody a story. Somebody has speedboats and I keep changing the other one because I keep forgetting canoe, dingy, whatever. So empathy, I think, is very, very important. That's the starting point. The second bit I said was resilience, which essentially means the ability to bounce back quickly. So as a leader, you have to give people the optimism and the confidence that things will get back to normal at some point. And for now, we need to bounce back quickly and we need to try and be as normal as we can under the circumstances. And that kind of confidence can only come from a leader, right? So those are two critical rudders, I would say, as you navigate these waters. The third thing, which I have seen come to the fore a lot more during the pandemic, is the how we make decisions, right? We often say that in this new age, it's not about command and control. It should be about collaboration. But you see, the pandemic has brought it out in a very different way. There was no choice. There are no best practices because we've never seen anything of such mammoth proportions. It's a crisis, right? Of humongous proportions. But there is no right answer. You don't know the decision that you will take tomorrow will actually reap results because we're all in the dark. And it was open-ended. We don't know how long this is going to take. So the best leaders, or uncommon leaders, I should say, have done this by harnessing the collective intelligence, by giving everybody in the organization a voice. The businesses that have pivoted or overnight changed business models, who have used the pandemic to their advantage almost, have been agile and nimble. It wasn't the CEO woke up on one fine morning and said, "Oh, now we'll start making sanitizers." It was his army of trusted people, and also people down the line that collectively brainstormed and said, "How can we change?" Because now that we're an opera house, nobody's coming for the longest time. How do we start streaming this online? Believe me, these ideas didn't come from one individual.
Yeah.
This is also coaching. When you give people a voice, when you involve them in decision making, that's coaching as well. And I think I've seen that truly come shine through during the pandemic.
Sure. I think, yeah, absolutely. It's led to some creative thinking and sort of leader being a real leader and leading to those monumental changes, that has helped us sail through. Good. Great to hear that. So, Kirti, over to you.
Ruchira, now we've been talking a lot about these uncommon leaders. Can you give us some examples? We'd like to hear that. We actually get into what is that definition? Is there one definition of coaching, or are people still trying to define this term? And how did you embrace this word?
You can Google it.
5 questions in one.
Maybe that's okay. You can go and you can tell me if I haven't answered them all because I forget. I think I'm getting old.
So the first
I start talking about one thing.
Stories of some of these uncommon leaders. I think we all love to hear these stories. And I know you've interviewed and you've worked with quite a few people.
Yeah. I think I start rambling after a while, so you can just stop me. I won't take it personally. But because I think when you write, my book is, I think, some 90,000 words. They'd given me a mandate for 70,000. And they said, "Oh, when the book is done, anyways, we'll drop 20,000. And then it just got getting bigger and bigger. And the pandemic happened. We added another chapter. So now I think it's nearly 90,000 words. And they didn't edit it. So I don't know whether to feel happy or sad. So anyway, it's a big book. I should forewarn you. But yeah, so back to your question. Defining coaching. You could Google, if you Google the term, I don't know now, I haven't done my homework, but when I was writing it last, it was 800,000 hits, right? So there are many different definitions. And I thought the one that really spoke to me, that grabbed my attention, was fairly simplistic. Coaching is the act whereby a leader or a coach maximizes the potential and the performance of an individual through a series of self-enabling and non-directive conversations. So the keywords here is a series. So it's not a one-time activity. So often people will say, "Oh yeah, I have a coaching session." Sorry?
Performance review where you're saying, "Oh,
yeah, exactly." Performance review, or "Oh, I blocked something in the calendar. I'm seeing this guy in 3 months. I'll have a chat with him." That's not coaching. Let's be very candid. Coaching is those stolen moments when you're by the water cooler. You guys a lot of you are in Delhi, and I know it's very cold, and of course there's no proverbial water cooler right now, but it's those when you cross each other, when you happen to just be in each other's path, or you're traveling to work together, or you take a flight together. Believe me, we will start flying again, so I'm sure that will happen. It's when you sit next to your boss and he starts talking to you, or she starts asking you about how your day was. That's also coaching, right? So it's a series of conversations, and the key is they're non-directive. You don't tell people what to do. You ask them how they will do it. And then you help them, guide them, provide them resources, open doors for them, connect them to the people. That's also coaching. Self-enabling. And at the heart of coaching, whether you do it as an executive coach or you do it as a leader, is about making that person shine. Your coachee or the person you're coaching should honestly be better than he or she was when you first started out. Sometimes people come back and say, oh my God, you made me do things that I never thought I was capable of. That's what's fulfilling after a coaching session. So that's the first part of your question. What was coaching, right? Yeah.
If I have a team, let's suppose, should I be thinking and saying, okay, you know what? Maybe every week or every 2, 3 weeks, I should be thinking about a coaching type of situation with my employees, or should it just happen naturally? Should it be planned? Should it be structured? Should it be in my mind and say, okay, you know what? I have a team of 10 people. And every 2, 3 weeks, I need to put it in my calendar so that I mentally remember as a leader that this is also part of my job that I should be doing, or I should just look for opportunities as they come.
It's
And my
actually an excellent question. I mean, honestly, it has to be both. When you try too hard to do something, that's also hard work, right? Let's say we all have leadership styles, and sometimes it's not easy to, just because Ruchira has written a book and there's a lot of rhetoric on coaching, you're not going to change your style. Within what comes naturally to you, think about how you will organize these interactions. So look for those opportunities that come organically, where you meet people not by design. Or a lot of CEOs, by the way, will walk the corridors because they feel, oh my God, I mean, and sometimes they just stop at someone's desk. So I'll give you a very interesting example. There was this guy who ran a restaurant, an entrepreneur, and he was telling me how he used to do it. He said, you know what, I wanted to check how my staff was doing, but I didn't want to breathe down their neck, because then they'll think I'm checking on them. So he would just discreetly stand around and start filling glasses of water, and then going to customers and say, hope everything's okay. And by doing that, he was always observing how his staff was interacting with the customers. And then later on, he would casually find opportunities to tell them, oh, fantastic job with whatever, let's say Mr. Bajaj. Do you think that next time we can service this better? So there are people who do it that way. There are those that will find planned moments and say, okay, maybe I should take this. So there's this guy in the Middle East, this sheikh who was telling me the story. And he said, we're always so, our lives are always sort of in the office. We don't really move around much. He said, I would often go to the supermarket for a walk. And we would both do grocery shopping, and then it would break the ice a little bit because they're all very nervous, right? He's a sheikh, and it can be a little intimidating. And he said, oh, I would casually bump into these guys. And he said, I didn't know who I was going to bump into, but it was the supermarket was in the same building as the office. And often people would buy stuff before going home. So he said, I would just float around there, and I would go, and whoever was there would say, oh, so what are you buying for dinner today? And I would strike a conversation. So there are people who would engineer these moments. And then, of course, you do need to have those calendar-driven formal meetings. And this is not your performance review. This is not what you tell somebody at the end of the year. That's a verdict. You can't expect someone to be coached when you're giving them your bonus. Hey, this is what you got paid because this is how you perform. How receptive is someone going to be to you saying you could have done this better when you've already decided their future, right? So you need a series of structured in-calendar conference room type of discussions, absolutely, where you should go prepared. But please, that's not all. You need a lot more of these, opportunities where you just randomly either bump into them or you embrace those opportunities. But the key is recognize those moments. Don't let those moments pass, because you'll find, if you look, you'll find those moments in the parking lot, in grocery shops, during a taxi ride together, in traffic in Mumbai, or I'm sure there are other parts. Chennai is no better, but I think you get the drift of what I'm saying before I start rambling on.
Yeah, I think what I'm understanding from Ruchira, from you, as a leader, I need to embrace that this is also part of my responsibility, not only towards my employees, but also if I want to grow further.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that is what I'm taking away. Urvi?
Yeah. So, very interesting to hear that, coaching is not just, one thing, but it is a series. It is a journey, or as you're saying, it's a series of moments that help us reach our end goal that we are trying to achieve in our career and our life. I want to understand, how long does it typically take for the impact of coaching to come into play for maybe a typical individual?
I don't have an answer which is accurate, because every individual is different. So there are two aspects to it. first you need to be open to coaching. A lot of people, despite your best efforts, will not tag team with you because it's a two-way street and you won't see results despite doing this. And there are individuals who are so keen to get coached and get inputs. You will start seeing results in 3 months. I had clients who've said, oh my God, this guy's completely turned around. What have you done? What have you fed him? And I've also had individuals who, maybe because they're so pressured with work or because it's just not priority for them, take a lot longer. Eventually, I've noticed that you do make a difference, but that change can take a long time to really be visible. So,
Really depends on how receptive you are
yeah,
or
I
how
think it's
much
a
of it you want to absorb or take in. Really.
yeah, absolutely. It's a two-way street. So you need to have the individual as coachable or as prepared and as keen to be embarking on this coaching journey with you. Otherwise, you can't keep pushing. It has to be pull and push.
It could be a realization thing as well. I mean, if you don't realize that you need to be coached or, you can be a
Absolutely.
better version of yourself, I think that's where the receptiveness factor could also be sort of swinging it.
I hope I don't get into trouble with the University of Chicago, but very often it started out like this, right? The first series of coaching sessions that I did for the ADP program, it's called the Accelerated Development Program for senior level executives. And they brought me in and they said, oh, she's a coach, but she's also an alum and she understands what you've done in the classroom and she can help you with these learnings. And honestly, I had this one guy, I think this was my first batch, and he said, honestly, I've done enough coaching, it doesn't work. And this was voluntary, so you can sign up or not, right? And frankly, I was getting paid the same amount, so I wasn't chasing anybody. I said, fine, don't come. Now, the trouble is, there were those that are very, very enthusiastic and eager. And so you go through these sessions. But then by the third week, people must be talking to each other. And I had these two gentlemen who then wanted to come on the last day and say, oh, we need a coaching session. But I said, we had this conversation and you said you've done it and been there, done it many times. I said, oh, I think I'll try you as well. Now, I was nice about it because, it's my alumna, it's my alma mater. And yeah, of course, I did what I think I did with this individual. And he gave me the strongest recommendation I've ever had from any client because he said it completely changed how he felt about coaching. So you do come across people who start by saying, this is not for me. I've been there. I've done it. Often they're cynical because I guess you don't know what you don't know. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, wonderfully. Absolutely. So, Kirti.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about when coaching does not work. And I think often we think that, okay, I found a coach, but I think you've explained it very well. It's the coachee also has to be very, very receptive to saying, okay, you know what? I actually want to be coached.
Exactly.
It is not only the leader saying, listen, I need to coach. So I think as a coach, and when you're looking at it, or as a leader who wants to, what are those top 5 skills that they should be saying that, you know what, this is what I need to hone in my team or hone as an individual and bring forward to them? Is there a list or is it kind of depends on the person?
There is a few, I guess, generic traits. I won't call them skills as much, but that you need to, if you want to coach, we're talking about someone who wants to coach, right? As
Yes,
opposed
I
to be
want to
coached.
coach.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Yeah,
now if I realize that if I want to become an uncommon leader, I need to become
absolutely.
a coach myself.
Yeah,
So first I'm trying to understand, okay, what do I need to develop in my team?
absolutely. Okay. So there's a long list, by the way. I have a whole chapter on this. It's called Preparing to Lift Off. But I'm not going to go, it's a long one. But I think at the very core is first you need, just like you want to get coached, you have to be cognizant of the fact that coaching people requires time, it requires mind space, it requires a lot of courage. You have to be convinced you want to coach because honestly, if often it's a flavor of the day, you get an engagement score and say, oh, I've done so badly. Okay, chalo, for the next few weeks I'm going to be very nice to my people, I'm going to chat with them and I'm going to ask them how they've done. That's not coaching, right? Coaching requires an inherent belief and conviction that you truly want to lift up. You have to lift these people up and lift yourself in the process. So at the very starting point, it's very simple, by the way. um, it's called, you should get to know your people. You need to have relationships, and Cheryl does that, by the way, with such panache. When she joined Facebook, One of the things she did, she went to every desk, and there are hundreds of people at Facebook. And she said, "Hi, I'm Cheryl. I'm the new COO." And that was all basically, but it's these connections. Now, often what happens is, as a leader or as a manager, you might be a good boss, but you know very little about the individual beyond your workspace. But to have a connection, you truly need to understand where these people come from, what are their unique strengths, and how can you help them play to potential. That's a truly important part as you embark on this coaching journey. You need to ensure that your people trust you. And what I mean by trust, let's take the pandemic as an example. There was a study that HBR did, Harvard Business Review, and they found out that I think 54% of managers, leaders said that their bosses don't trust them. What that means is they're constantly checking in on them. Are you doing the job? You have to be available. Yes, it's work from home, but coaching is also about giving people the space and trusting them that they do their job, right? And if you're constantly checking in on people, they won't trust you either. So it's about checking on them. Are you doing okay? Is everything else okay? Do you need anything from me? Can I help in any way? That's fine. You don't check in, you check on people. So that's the second part of it. It's the trust factor. You have to build those reservoirs of trust. Otherwise, coaching won't go forward. If someone doesn't trust you, they're not going to open up in front of you. Right? The third is, I think, what Satya Nadella talks about a lot in his book, Hit Refresh. Having a growth mindset, the belief that everyone can grow and change. Right? Often we say, I'm going to switch to the vernacular, right? Iska kuch nahi hone wala. He's always done badly. But you have to shift away from that mindset and say, I will give this individual a real chance. If there's something holding him or her back in my unit or in my business unit or my organization, maybe I can find a space for this individual elsewhere. And in the end, the outcome may not be positive, but you have to give this a real chance. And that is a mindset that you need to embrace as you start to embrace this coaching journey if you want to be a coach, right? That is, I guess, to me, and of course, you need empathy, and of course, you need to be a consistent leader. And there are many, many more things. But these are the top three for me as you start thinking about being a coach or embarking on this coaching journey.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Urvi, to you, and then we'll take a lot of questions from the audience.
Sure. So one final question, Ruchira. Very curious to know what has been your motivation to write this book?
Okay, I'm telling you the honest answer, right? I could say, oh, I always wanted to write this book. No, that wasn't the case, to be honest. I was always told that I should write because I have a spouse who's been always needling me. You should write. I have a professor who's a great mentor to me, Michael Gibbs, at the University of Chicago, and he also got me into teaching. He kept saying, you should write. And often we would meet in Singapore, and my husband and he would get together and start nagging me nonstop. So I had these two naggers who was asking me to write. But what happened was, as I moved to India, and I would write the odd article in the newspaper, but honestly, I wasn't going to look for writing a book. It's too much work, I used to tell myself. And it is, by the way. But as it happened that I moved to India after being away in Singapore for many years, and I got the opportunity to write a column for the Mint. And they said, oh, what will you write about? And I said, I don't know that much, but I teach a class on the leader as coach. I said, oh, why don't you start writing? And you would be surprised, Urvi, the kind of feedback I got, right? From people all over India writing to me and saying, my God, what an amazing column. And I didn't anticipate that kind of feedback because to me, I thought this is a message that truly hasn't, gone home. Anyway, so that happened. And around the same time, the commissioning editor at Penguin saw it. And he saw the potential of converting this column into a book. And so, as they say, the rest is history. But I should add, I am someone who's very passionate about the topic. I teach about it, I write about it, but I've also experienced organizations where there's been a complete vacuum of coaching. I've been in those organizations, and I know how hard it is, how debilitating it is for the individual. And by the same token, I've been with managers and bosses who have constantly elevated me and have changed my leadership narrative. So I know how powerful it can be if we spread that message. So I think it worked out really well.
Can't agree more. Perfect. Okay, let's open it up to audience. Okay.
Samir, we'll take your question first, and then Sri Watson, we'll take your question next.
Sure. So hi, Ruchira, this is Sudhir. A quick question and comment, a combination of those. But I think you talked earlier about how coaches, probably are tempted very often to become prescriptive, and that's not what this is about. This is not about how they did things, but it's about how you can get the best out of people. In that context, how important a role does explaining organization purpose and trying to focus on the potential of the person you're seeking to coach or talk to help in sort of driving the best performance for the organization? Because at the end, you don't want to be a great coach and a leader in terms of bringing out the best of people, and then you miss organizational goals also. So how do you balance the two together, and what role does explaining the purpose and therefore getting people aligned actually have as a role to play, in your view?
Thank you, Samir. It's a very profound question, but I wouldn't expect anything less from somebody like you. So thank you. But okay, so as someone who's been a consultant, not so much as a coach in my early years, my professional life, I've had the same dilemma, right? My first reaction has always been, I can help this person. I can tell them how it's done because they're struggling here. And I have to contain that urge to offer that solution. But as a leader and coach, it's much harder because you have to balance organizational priorities with the individual's potential to shine brighter. So it's a tough one. You need to play to the person's unique strengths. You need to help them shine brighter, etc. But you have to be cognizant that at the end of the day, all of this has to go in the direction of meeting the organization's objectives as well. And often, if you find yourself at a juncture where you feel that these two are in direct conflict with each other, maybe you have to take some hard calls, or maybe you have to support your coachee in finding his or her path outside that organization. And the best leaders and uncommon leaders often do that. Does that answer your question, or did I deviate?
Amir? We'll go to the next question and hopefully he'll come back. So Lakshmi is asking this question, and how can a leader avoid falling into the trap of forming opinions and judging people they work with, especially when one is coaching them? And I think you touched upon this because we are very quick to form opinions. So how can you remain neutral when you are coaching?
It's hard. That's all I can say. It's a lot of practice. You'll have to, it won't come to you tomorrow. Thanks, Samira. I read the message. He says I answered the question. Okay. It's hard. It's hard because it's like, I don't know, it's like learning to ride a bicycle, perhaps. You'll keep falling the first few times, but then eventually you'll get the hang of it. If you're committed to coaching, you will find it won't come easy, especially because it's a new feeling for you where you're not giving somebody the answers to these solutions. You will have to suspend judgment. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. You have to suspend judgment. You have to consciously believe that if I saw, okay, I'll give you an example. I always like to give you examples that sort of brings it alive. So my brother was telling me about this story. He's a consultant as well. And he was saying he had this boss who was very, very conventional. And he didn't want us to always, I guess he was just, if you wore really outlandish clothes, he had a point of view on it. He said, oh, we're a consulting firm, you should always wear a tie. And the world started changing. They did a lot of work in the tech industry. So, people just became a lot more casual, right? And they would keep their ties and their jackets next to, and then, whatever, on the desk or something. If you needed to, they would. But that really bothered him, right? To the point that you could see that when he was appraising them or having conversations, that would color his judgment of the person, because he'd say, wo to aise kapde pehen ke aata hai, right? And that's what you have to get away from, because you have to delink the two. If there's something that truly irritates you about the person, but that cannot interfere with how you are with the individual when you're trying to bring out the best in that person. So I don't have an answer, I don't have an accurate answer, but all I'll say is it's hard work. But if you're committed to doing it, you'll have to suspend judgment. You'll have to delink the two, and you'll have to truly believe that you can help the person become a better version of himself or herself without letting your personal opinions come in the way.
Dimple, we'll take your question next. Go ahead, Dimple.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to ask, what are the academic qualifications that you require to become a coach? Are
I don't
there
have too
any?
many. I don't have too many, I must be honest with you, but there is a whole lot of certifications. There is the best well-known one is the ICF Coaching Federation, but there are also several others. And in addition to that, you also have what we call instruments, coaching instruments. So there's Hogan, there's MBTI. So depending on what you would like to, what kind of coaching you'd like to embrace, you could definitely find something that works for you. There's also, I think, Marshall Goldsmith. There's a whole bunch of instruments distinct from getting a certification.
So are there any which are available online which we can take from Coursera or some Udemy
I'm
or
sure they are.
someplace?
I'm not the best person to ask, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer, but I'm sure we can send you something after the session. We can ask around and find you something that will at least answer your question a lot more accurately than how I'm fumbling with it right now.
Mona is asking a question. Now, how can we make people more receptive to coaching and it not be seen as criticism?
Yeah. I think at an organization level, if every leader consciously embarks on this practice of coaching others, I can't say every leader because at the end of the day, it's subjective. And unless the organization truly embraces a culture of coaching, it's important to understand why someone's being coached. It's not because you're not performing or because it's a toxic behavior that we need to fix. We need to change the narrative around coaching. We need to talk about coaching as maximization of performance and potential, not something that is seen to be a quick fix or a fix for bad behavior or someone who's a great performer but doesn't quite know how to deal with people. We need to change the narrative, and that has to start from your manager, from your leader, from perhaps ideally the CEO of the organization. And once upon a time, we did think of coaching as being a solution for fixing toxic behavior, but that world has changed completely. Now it's almost like a badge of honor. Oh, I have an executive coach. Oh, I've got an executive coach. That must cost money. I have a lot of these conversations. So it's changing, but at the back of a lot of people's mind, they still think, am I getting a coach? Is there a problem? Or the narrative has to change. No, you're getting a coach because you have the potential, because you can do so much more. And that's why you're getting a coach. And that's why I'm spending time on you, right? Whether it's in-house or outside.
Fantastic. No, because I think that is typically the response. Oh, I need to be coached. That means something must be wrong with me. Rather than saying there is so much more scope for improvement that possibly I can embrace. I love the answer. Thank you for that. I'm asking Srivatsan to unmute. I know that he's had some background noise. Sorry, I keep putting you back on. Go ahead.
Hello, madam. Thanks for enlightening conversation we had, and wherein we got the in-depth knowledge about as if we have read the book itself. We got the idea about the book and as well as the various facets of the coaching process. We got enlightened. But my query is with regard to the cricket or sports, any badminton or anything, cricket, everything. Even shining stars, they are given coach and they abide by the coaching practice and other thing. But in the organization, even though the coaching practice as a HR concept as developed in such a way that even CEO coaching is possible nowadays in the organization, it is being practiced. And if there is a reluctance at some level by employee, how to make the coaching as a HR practice as a success? And like in mentee should accept like Agalaiva in Mahabharata. It is nothing but a practice of coaching. He voluntarily, without knowledge of the Dronacharya, accepted him as a mentor and practiced the skill. Thereby he developed and outperformed Arjuna like that. So this kind of practice to make it a success in the organization, what are the ways you have dealt with in your book?
Sorry, just one clarification. Are we focusing on the boss or the manager as the coach, or are we talking about an external coach, or both?
Oh, sorry, 1 second.
mentee who undergoes.
Please repeat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the manager or the? No.
He has to be unmuted, right?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
One second.
We'll get it right. Just bear with us for a minute.
I think I keep hitting, he keeps hitting. So we're having badminton here.
Go ahead. If the mentee shows the reluctance in the coaching process, how to make it success?
And this is for a mentee is
in the organization context, whereas in the sports and other thing and all, they accept and go ahead.
Okay, so this is a very, very common problem. There are, despite some people are fantastic performers, but they just don't want to get coached, right? Like you just said, you can only bring a horse to the water. Like, what is it? Horse to the well, but you can't make them drink it. But there's only that much you can do. And I think the key to this is having completely candid conversations. Why coaching? What can coaching do for you? And this is not a reflection on your performance or your behavior. It's because we believe that there's true potential in you to shine. And let's assume the person's not doing well. The narrative can also change and say, things may not be going so well, but we're committed to understanding how we can help you, right? Because regardless of the coaching style of the boss, one thing has to be amply clear to the individual being coached. The only objective is to make you shine brighter, is to tap those, the untapped reservoirs of innovation and creativity and potential that you have. And that's what we're trying to do. And frankly, just like in life, some relationships have to end. If you feel that it's not working, then you have to just let it go. You need to have that conversation with HR, as you said, and said, individuals not interested in coaching. And, you will find that a boss will spend less and less time. HR might try and have some other quick fixes. But if it doesn't work out, either the individual ends up being a mediocre player in the organization and will continue to do what he or she's been doing without really rising some stellar heights, or will opt out. So both scenarios exist. But if you're not receptive to coaching, after a few attempts, you won't get any. And that will be the individual's loss. And that bit has... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What I'm understanding from you, Ruchira, it's almost a prestige to be thought that, okay, you know what, I'm going to be coached. And even CEOs, all executives are actually being coached. And I think we need to change that mindset, because I think it's so deep dug in us that if I need coaching means something I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, also, I think what Mr. Did I get your name now? Was saying is that we talk about HR in the mix, right? It goes back to that narrative. Your leader, your boss has to be your best coach. We can do many HR programs, but HR doesn't know your people like you do. We can do training programs, we can do all of that, but those are events. That's a training. Coaching is a process. It's a continuum, right? It doesn't end. So often it's not as formal or as explicit as you were saying. This coaching comes in many forms. If the person is not receptive, you have to try different things. Your boss should find that moment like that gentleman found in the grocery store or on a drive, and truly, if they start trusting you, they will open up. They might turn around and say, listen, I don't need this, or frankly, I don't think I need more coaching. That's fine too, but you have to embark on that journey together and try and find those moments where the individual can trust you to tell you things as they are.
Alan, we'll take your question, and Satyendra has also asked a very interesting one, and we'll close with that. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Madam, thank you for the great efforts to entire team for such a superb session. Madam, we want to ask, certainly from your good self, how was the experience of this book, where you have to dedicatedly contribute not many hours, how much month it took for the purpose of the preparation of the book? Was it a easy task, or you have to contribute dedicatedly? And who is your source of inspiration? Who is your leader that always you keep in mind when you encounter all these, navigate through all these difficulties?
So I dedicated the book to my mother and my son, but it's a bit funny because my son doesn't really listen to me right now. So I'll tell you what my dedication is. We don't have a copy of the book. It says, for Mom, the best coach I've had, and for Raghav, that's my son, who I hope someday might say the same about me. But right now he doesn't. He wants to run very far away from whatever I ask him to do. So yes, I learned a lot from my mother growing up, and then I didn't acknowledge it, of course. But now that you're a lot older and have a lot of gray hair, you think of them. Oh, they actually did tell you a lot. They did give you the space to find your own path, and you wouldn't have been who you are today if it wasn't for your parents. But also, as I started to put the book together, writing a column of 700 words each versus writing a book for 90,000 words is a very different experience. I started to research people. Some of them are, of course, luminaries like Satya Nadella or Cheryl, Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. But I've also put in experiences of everyday people, some CEOs, some people down the line. I didn't want the seniority or the level to be what defined uncommon leadership. Wherever I found instances of people that were going beyond what I thought was just good leadership to extraordinary leadership, I've tried to talk about that. I've talked about some children I met in Bhutan while I was invited for a session there, and it's connected to the royal family. It's the first ever law school that they built and they were these young children that they were talking about very passionately about what they wanted to do in life. And you realized that the dean of the law school, and by the way, this was a forum filled with the royals, imagine talking like that. You would think they're so formal typically. It's the dean said, you know what, we've given them the space to think. We've given them the space to be different. And if they wish to be different, we are happy with it. If they choose not to do law after being part of the law school, that's fine too. We're giving them the path. I thought that was extraordinary. I would never have had people in my college ever saying, oh, you can choose to do what you want to do. Because we were told, like, do the right thing, do the MBA, all of that stuff, right? So I've talked about people like that. I've talked about the JSW College of Law. I've talked about my hairdresser. I've talked about my client she would intimidate me so much, but she ended up being such a great friend. So there are lots of people in that book. Some clearly well-known personalities, lots of cricketers, though I don't know much about cricketing. But a lot of cricketers, I try to analyze it a little bit, film stars, just people from everyday life that I thought everyone could relate to.
So the last question we'll take from Satyendra. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sukriti. Ruchira, if I have to ask you to name 3 great coaches from the field of business, sports, and politics, who will be those 3 great coaches?
Business, Satya Nadella. Again, I'm biased. He went to the University of Chicago, so we're all very biased, yeah. And I've had the pleasure of meeting him, and I truly think he's an amazing coach. Not just what he's done to Microsoft, but he's just a person who radiates that energy. From the field of sport, you said?
And politics, yes.
Again, I said I don't know enough, but I thought Dhoni and whatever I've read about him, not just, he never had the exalted status that Sachin Tendulkar did, but he's been one of the finest captains we've seen because of his ability to take people along in the journey. And politics, pardon me, but I thought Jacinda Ardern. By the way, I even asked her to write an endorsement for the book because I thought she was amazing how she handled the pandemic, right? And I didn't expect an answer, but I got an answer. Can you imagine? And they said, we don't endorse books because, she's a prime minister of a country and it's politics. But I was completely in awe of the kind of leadership she has demonstrated and how she is connected to everybody across age groups in New Zealand. So those would be my top 3 choices.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Any closing thoughts, Urvi?
No, I think it's very, very enlightening as a session. I mean, I think for me also it's been an eye-opener to understand what coaching is and what coaching isn't, And I think it'll be a matter of pride for me to even get a life coach or a career coach at some point in my life and sort of go through that experience. So thank you, Ruchira. It was truly an enlightening experience.
My pleasure.
Ruchira, any last words before we end for the night?
Well, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for being here and listening to me. And the only message I have is continue to coach, enable, empower others. When you shine the light on them, you also shine brighter.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that was my biggest takeaway. I think when I think about coaching, mentally, it was that I needed to be coached. I think my perspective has changed that I have to be the coach. So I think that has really shed a new light for me. I'm really looking forward to reading your book. I'm getting it today, so it's a very big pleasure for me. So on behalf of Lean In and Sipping Thoughts, thank you all for joining us today. Please do get your copy, because as leaders, and if you want to become exceptional leaders, you need to also become a good coach or a great coach. Thank you,
Nicely done.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.